Good morning, everyone. Paul Ripple here with Fox 29 News Now. I hope your Thursday's off to a great start. We're taking a live look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. See, Philly is all bustle on this Thursday morning. It's beautiful outside if you get a chance to get out there. Definitely enjoy the weather. As I mentioned, Paul Ripple here with you today on Fox 29 News Now. First time back in the saddle for a while after some work travel. It's good to be back in Philly. We're going to get you started with a report on reaction to the Mueller testimony yesterday, the ex-special counsel. It was one of the most anticipated congressional hearings in decades. It's now over. After Robert Mueller's day in the hot seat, everyone is claiming victory. Fox's Doug Luzader had more in this report from Washington this morning on Good Day Philadelphia.
Democrats, Republicans regrouping this morning after a tumultuous day on Capitol Hill.
Special counsel Robert Mueller testified for some 7 hours yesterday about his Russia probe. So Doug Luzader has more on kind of the after effects of this. And now what happens next?
Good morning. And with reviews still kind of coming in as far as Robert Mueller's performance is concerned, Democrats are promising to move forward on a number of investigations.
So help you God.
Robert Mueller knew he would be in for a long day, and the critic-in-chief wasted little time weighing in.
I think Robert Mueller did a horrible job, both today and with respect to the investigation. But in all fairness to Robert Mueller, he had nothing to work with.
But that review aside, Democrats think they scored some points here with Mueller.
Did you actually totally exonerate the president?
No.
Mueller's appearances before 2 committees yesterday were part of a Democratic effort to, at the very least, animate a lengthy written report that they think makes a solid case against the president. Republicans who took part would have none of it.
The bedrock principle of our justice system is a presumption of innocence. It exists for everyone. Everyone is entitled to it, including sitting presidents.
And while Mueller's performance was at times halting, Democrats who support impeachment had counted on him to help bolster their claims. A Fox News poll shows that over the past month, public sentiment on impeachment has barely moved. Still, Democratic leaders are promising to keep grinding away on a number of investigations, hoping the public will follow along.
I'm begging the American people to pay attention to what is going on.
And beyond the politics of all of this, Mueller did once again kind of make a plea for Congress to do something about foreign interference in U.S. elections. Alex and Thomas.
Doesn't exonerate the president, that's what he said, but does anything said yesterday change the calculus of impeachment?
Doesn't really seem to, and in fact, we may see it kind of plateau a little bit simply because there were no big bombshells yesterday. You know, there are, just shy of 90 Democrats in the House who support impeachment. That's a lot. Nowhere near the number they need, and Nancy Pelosi is still not on board with impeachment.
Yeah, they said no scenario where Robert Mueller will bring down the president. Doug Luzader this morning. Doug, thank you.
Speaking of the House Speaker, it appears she has just stepped up to the microphone at an event celebrating 200 days of Democratic leadership in the House of Representatives. Let's listen into her remarks right now at that event.
And reverse the GOP sabotage of health care. We promised lower health care costs, increase workers' paychecks, and we gave 33 million workers a pay raise by raising the minimum wage, passed paycheck fairness, equal pay for equal work, and passed key investments in job-creating infrastructure, as well as protecting the pensions of our workers. Lower health care costs, bigger paychecks, cleaner government. We promised to clean up corruption, and in March we passed H.R. 1, the For the People Act, to reduce big, dark money in politics, advance fair and secure elections, and restore ethics to government, and at the same time fight against any foreign intervention into our elections. Our members will, in the month of August, our members will accelerate a drumbeat across the nation. We will own August for the people. We will own August and make it too hot to handle for the Senate not to take up our bills. To lower health care costs, bigger paycheck, cleaner government for the people, too hot to handle. We're going to own August. With that, I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished Assistant Speaker, Mr. Lujan.
Thank you, Speaker. Well, good morning, everybody. And Speaker Pelosi, thank you for bringing us together today as we have a conversation with the American people about the first 200 days of work that has been done on behalf of the people all across the United States of America. And as the Assistant Speaker, I've had the honor of working with the new members across America that help flip Republican seats to restore checks and balances, to protect our democracy, but to deliver for working families across the country. For the last 200 days, we've been working with colleagues who have sent their message across America, but many of them who have held more public events in their districts than their predecessors had. The Republicans that they defeated had in the previous 2 years, 4 or even 6 years. And think about what I just shared with you. There was a commitment made by our new colleagues to say that they would make themselves available in all corners of their congressional districts. They've held over 300 town halls, over 2,000 events in their districts. Members like Andy Kim, who held more town halls in 3 months than the Republican that he defeated held in the previous 2 years. Members like Haley Stevens, who will visit 24 townships in 24 days during the August recess. Joe Neguse, who has found a way to meet with constituents and contribute to public service by creating community service town halls. That's what this is all about. And so we're delivering for the American people. We will own August. We will continue to work on behalf of the great people and deliver on the great agenda that was put forth to make a positive difference in the lives of the American people. And with that, I'm pleased to turn this over to one of my colleagues, one of my friends, the powerhouse from Michigan, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.
Thank you, Congressman Lujan. Last fall, the American people overwhelmingly spoke up and sent to Congress the most diverse freshman class ever. 200 days into the Democratic majority, together, our caucus has fought to protect people with pre-existing conditions and has delivered on lowering health care costs and prescription drug prices for people. Whether I'm at a town hall, I'm at Mass, getting my hair done, or at the grocery store. That doesn't matter where I am. I hear from people who are scared to death about changes to their health care and their ability to access affordable quality health care. Patients are fearful about how much the next trip to the pharmacy will cost them, and if they can pay at all. And one example, you've heard about the insulin, you've heard about the EpiPen. I keep walking around with this inhaler. It's $700. A mother of 2 working 2 jobs, still at the poverty line, has a child with asthma and has to figure out how she pays for this for her child. The fact is, more and more Americans are delaying, they are rationing, or they're skipping their treatments and not getting their medicine at all. Earlier this year, the House Democrats passed a package to lower prescription drug costs by increasing generic competition and expanding and improving the healthcare marketplace for all consumers while protecting people with pre-existing conditions. Further, the Energy and Commerce Committee has passed strong legislation to protect patients from surprise billing. You know how many, my bills at home from John are that thick still. People just don't understand what it is. And increased transparency in drug pricing. Lowering prescription drug prices and health care costs will take all of us working together. House Democrats are never going to stop listening to people. We're never going to stop fighting for the people. And we are going to deliver for them because they deserve it. So now I want to turn this over to my fabulous freshman colleague, who's a nurse with heart and compassion and understands these issues, Congressman Lauren Underwood.
In the first 200 days, House Democrats have delivered transformative progress for the people, especially for Americans who fear the Trump administration's continual assault on health care that will destroy coverage for pre-existing conditions and drive up health care costs. As a nurse and as a person with a pre-existing condition, I know firsthand how important it is for us to fight for these protections that people rely on. It's why the people sent us here. On day one, we got straight to work and voted to throw the full legal weight of the U.S. House of Representatives against President Trump's heartless lawsuit to strike down protections for 130 million people with pre-existing conditions. In our appropriations process in June, we voted to cut off funds for the Department of Justice that's using to undermine the Affordable Care Act in Texas versus U.S., and we won't stop fighting to protect access to care. This spring, we passed important legislation to crack down on junk health insurance plans that do not have to cover people with pre-existing conditions or provide essential health benefits like maternity care and prescription drugs, plans that send costs skyrocketing for people with pre-existing conditions. And we've just gotten started. It hasn't been easy, and it's going to continue to be a fight as President Trump and Republicans try to deny important protections every day in the courts, in our state houses, and here in Congress. But House Democrats came ready for the fight. And as we've shown in these last 200 days, we're not taking our foot off the gas until every American has access to quality, affordable health care. I'd now like to bring up Congressman Cartwright. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for turning out this morning. You know, Debbie Dingle's right. We are working hard to bring down the enormous costs of prescription medications. Lauren Underwood is right. We are working overtime to make sure that health care is affordable and available to all Americans. And as part of the For the People challenge and promise, we are also fulfilling the promise to make wages increase for millions of American workers. As part of that agenda, Democrats are taking steps to increase workers' wages and rebuild America. We know there's work to be done to upgrade our nation's roads and bridges and sewer systems and water systems, and we are turning that challenge into an opportunity to raise wages by investing in our national infrastructure, by believing in ourselves as Americans, and by creating millions of jobs along the way. I'm proud to say the House has already approved over $70 billion to invest in American infrastructure, and there's more to come. As we've worked to raise wages for the American people, we've also passed bills that will save American pensions. Just last night, we passed the Butch-Lewis Act, which will save the pensions of over 1 million American workers and retirees. This bill will ensure that our seniors can put food on their tables, and they're able to afford their medications and live with dignity. That's what the Democrats are focused on, working for the people. And we're doing it because we understand a simple truth, that when we invest in our communities, when we raise wages for the middle-class Americans, everybody wins. Thank you for listening, and I want to turn it over to a wonderful Congressman, Katie Hill from California, who has emerged as a real leader. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And my name is Katie Hill, and I'm the Congresswoman for California's 25th Congressional District. And I'm also one of the youngest women in Congress, both in this class and in history. Because of that, I've seen the effects of a low minimum wage and the wage gap on young people, people of color, and women specifically. I've been a server myself, working my way through college, and I worked in minimum wage restaurants not even that long ago. In my previous career as the executive director of the largest homeless services organization in the state of California, I saw so many people who worked full-time and still could not afford a place to live. And I know that if we ever want to deal with issues like the housing crisis, the student loan debt crisis, and all of the other barriers between my generation and the American dream, it all starts with people earning a fair living wage. And that's why in our first 200 days, the House passed the Raise the Wage Act and the Paycheck Fairness Act. Every single day, we are fighting for Americans like the people in my district, union members, hardworking single moms, struggling young people, regular families, who are just trying to make it into the middle class. This is why we're here, and we will deliver. Thank you. And I'd like to bring up my friend and colleague from California, Congressman Ted Lieu.
Thank you. Americans across the political spectrum are exasperated that they see a government that is not working for them and instead working for special interests. That's why last year Democrats pledged to clean up corruption in Washington, D.C. And this year, the House Democratic Caucus has delivered. We passed the For the People Act, also known as H.R. 1. This legislation will restore the promise of our democracy and repair our democratic institutions. Specifically, it will get rid of the dominance of big money in politics. It enacts strict new ethics rules, and it will also mandate safe elections. Yesterday's hearings with Special Counsel Robert Mueller also showed that both Democrats and Republicans agreed that the Russians attacked us in a sweeping and systematic manner in 2016. That's why we need to pass the SAFE Act, also known as Securing America's Federal Elections Act. This bill will require that voting systems, which have long been vulnerable to hacking, be required by the National Science Foundation to develop accessible voter-verified paper ballot voting systems. Specifically, this bill, starting with elections in 2020, will require voting systems for federal elections to be manufactured right here in the United States and to make sure that paper ballots are made available for verification by the voter before the vote is cast. This was also passed by the House Democratic Caucus. Both the SAFE Act and the For the People Act are in front of the U.S. Senate. As Speaker Pelosi said, we need to make it too hot to handle for them. We need the U.S. Senate to take up these bills so that we can restore the promise of our great country. And now I'm going to introduce the terrific Congressman Dean Phillips from the great state of Minnesota, who's going to talk more about efforts to clean up corruption.
Thank you, Ted. And I'm Dean Phillips. I've never been so humbled and so honored to work in these times, in this building, and with the most extraordinary group of human beings I've ever had the honor to work with as those behind me. And 2 years ago, I made a decision, just like the rest of the freshman class, a decision to get off of the sidelines and run for office, because I was sick and tired of watching a political system that gives special treatment to special donors, a political system that effectively legalizes corruption, and a political system that disenfranchises millions of people who've lost faith that they matter and that their votes are secure. That is why the first bill that we introduced with our new House majority was H.R. 1, the For the People Act. It puts government back into everybody's hands, and that is where it belongs. By reducing the influence of big money in our politics, by enhancing election security, by cleaning up corruption, and placing the common interest over the special interests. And while we are all appalled that Mitch McConnell will not even bring up H.R. 1 for a vote on the Senate floor, we are not discouraged. For we are Democrats, and we will never stop fighting until political power is returned to its rightful home in the hands of the people. And my friends, change is coming, and we are just getting started. With that, I turn it over to my dear friend and colleague from the great state of Rhode Island, David Cicilline.
Good morning.
All right, we're going to step away from this event and get you back to some more news. Take another look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway there. Overly optimistic. Why young Americans may have their sights set too high when it comes to their financial future. Fox Business Network's Tracy Carrasco explains in this conversation from Good Day Philadelphia this morning.
Well, a new report says young Americans may be overly optimistic about their finances.
So here's the deal. They think they're going to reach certain financial goals sooner than what's actually realistic for them. Are we popping their bubble here, Tracy?
I think it's a little healthy dose of reality for these Generation Z and young millennials, because they think By age 20, they plan on moving out. By 25, they plan on being married and starting a family. And by 27, they plan on buying a home. This is according to a new study from TD Ameritrade. They found that these young adults are very ambitious when it comes to paying their own bills. They want to pay their own streaming services. They want to pay their own cell phones. However, about half of them still until their mid-20s, mom and dad still helping them out quite a bit. So I think it just comes down to being realistic, having realistic goals also as far as parents go, maybe really teaching them about money from a young age, not just one lesson, but repeatedly teaching them about budgeting, about debt, about what it is to have a financial plan, and that might put things a little more in check for the young adults.
Yeah, I'm surprised they have these particular goals, considering the fact that student loans are so heavy to deal with and everything else.
Yep. Well, and also considering a lot of maybe the older millennials are putting off a lot of these big milestones, these life milestones, until way later, getting married, buying a home. We've seen numerous studies saying that people are waiting much longer now to get married and to do all of these things. So that's interesting to see that they're thinking much younger than what we've seen with past generations.
Well, it's good to have goals. It needs to be like back in the day with me when I was 18. Mama was like, all right, time to get out. But there's a lot of hand-holding these days, so 26, 27, and 30s. We'll
Factor
see.
that in.
Exactly. Thanks, Tracy.
Yes, thank you to Tracy Carrasco for that report. Let's get you a look at your weather conditions right now. You're looking again live at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. It is a beautiful 78 degrees out there right now. Dew point is at 62, winds out of the north at 5 miles per hour. Here's a look at ultimate Doppler radar. Not much to speak of, as we've got that sunshine out there for the most part. Your current temperatures, as we mentioned, 78 in Philly right now. A couple 80s out there, Millville, Toms River, 81 in Atlantic City. Low point is 70 in Mount Pocono at this moment, but most of the area around 70, upper 70s, 80 degrees. Across the northeast, lots of yellow and green, a little bit of 60s in north central and western Pennsylvania. Looks like mostly the mountain regions, the Appalachians are, and maybe a little west of there in the 60s right now, but warming up. Even Florida, look at that, quite a discrepancy between Miami at 87 and Tampa at 74. So, West getting, much of the country getting a reprieve from that heat we had last week especially. In terms of temperature change, it's actually about 2 degrees warmer right now than it was at the same hour yesterday. Most places within a couple degrees of yesterday's temperature. Winds, calm on up to 10 miles per hour at Mount Pocono. Not much to speak of by way of gusts, but you see the winds coming out of the north, helping to keep things a little cooler. Visibility tends across the area. And there's your look at satellite. Not much to speak of in terms of cloud cover. Here comes your futurecast. See all that rain off the coast, but we're under high pressure right now and looking good. Your 7-day forecast from the Fox 29 Weather Authority. The first of a pair of 10s right now. 86, sunny and nice today. You might want to open your windows if you haven't in a while. It's been a little bit cooler. I think we're in the 60s overnight last night in some places. We'll be back into 60s the next 2 nights as well. Friday, sunny and warmer as the Phillies come home, 88. Understand this will be an important homestand for the Phils. Things get a little more humid on Saturday, 88 for a high. That's why we're calling that a 9 on our forecast by the numbers. Sunday, back to the 90s. Then we're at 91, sunny and hot on Monday. Could be officially marking heat wave number 4 on Tuesday as we get to 92. And Wednesday, PM storms, 87 degrees for a high. Overnight lows still in the low to mid 70s, so still pretty comfortable out there. And don't forget to download the Fox 29 Weather Authority app. Get the current conditions, Futurecast radar, all the everything to help you to be in the know while you're on the go and take our forecast with you. We also just improved the live stream experience in there, or will be shortly. You can watch our newscasts right there on the air if we go on the air, especially if there's some breaking news. Another good place to watch us. Nice shot from our camera outside on the rooftop outside, looking at Old City from our studios at 4th and Market Streets. Let's get you to some local news now. The Melrose Diner is closed until further notice after the famous landmark erupted in flames. Our Sabina Kuriakos has this report.
Hey guys, well this is such a landmark, such a staple that we have had customers and workers coming here since last night when the fire broke out to take a look at the damage and try to figure out when the business is going to be back up and running. In fact, they already have crews here taking a look at the damage, starting the process of repairing things and fixing it all up inside. They actually have some fans going, blowers going to try to dry out from all of that water that the firefighters actually had to pour on to the flames yesterday when they got here. So it was around 5:45. The staff had just started serving dinner to the regular customers here when they said that fire started blowing from the rafters here. It was actually coming up from the ceiling. You can see the extent of the damage. Actually, all of it at least contained to just a corner of this building here, but again, so extensive that they have had to close, and they're not quite sure when they're going to be able to reopen. This morning, we had workers, some of them working here for decades. One man, Ernie, he tells me he's been working here for 57 years. He still does maintenance here. Another man, Arlen, he was working here for 40 years before he just recently retired. This is home to them, and we spoke to them this morning when they came out to take a look at the damage. Here's what they told us.
It was devastating. I couldn't believe it. Yep. I've been here since I was a kid.
I started work here in 1959. I had the only experience I had was being a mess cook in the Navy.
I started as a porter, then I moved up to a night cook, and then to maintenance.
My boss said, "We'll teach you." And he did. He taught me how to shorter to cook, and then I learned how to run the diner.
Yeah, a pure piece of Americana here in Philly. Damaged, but able to be restored and repaired. The owner thinks that it was an electrical issue that caused all of this damage, but it's still going to take them some time to figure out exactly what happened and what went on. You mentioned the owner. He was hoping that he could get all of this fixed up and the diner back up and ready to go in about a week, but now he's thinking it might look like more than a month. Guys, back to you.
Thank you to Sabina for that report. It was a big news day yesterday for rapper Meek Mill. Pennsylvania appeals court ruled that he will get a new trial and a new judge in a unanimous vote. The three-judge opinion grants Meek Mill a new trial because of new evidence of alleged police corruption. The Pennsylvania Superior Court also overturned Judge Janice Brinkley's parole violation findings, which sent him back to prison in 2017. The Philly DA's office has said it will not call the police officer who was the sole prosecution witness because of doubts about his credibility. They could still choose to drop the case, making a new trial unnecessary. Local attorney Shaka Johnson joined us this morning on Good Day Philadelphia to talk more about this case. Here was that conversation from Good Day this morning.
33. Well, happening now, rapper Meek Mill is getting a new trial. He could be. Pennsylvania Appeals Court made the ruling after new evidence of alleged police corruption.
I want to bring in attorney Shaka Johnson, who's joining us this morning. Great to have you with us in studio. I don't think this really comes as a major surprise because you really didn't have anyone against this except for the judge in the case.
Correct. This is not a surprise. I think all people who were following this story knew this was going to happen. Because it's been such a heavily followed trial.
And there's been a lot of back and forth, but what does this mean for him?
What this means is today he is not a convicted felon. And that means a lot for people who wear that scarlet letter of F, or felons. It means a difference in housing. Now, these might not be issues that a wealthy person has, but issues of housing, issues of student loans, those sorts of things. He doesn't have those sorts of issues anymore. Where you can travel, certain countries won't allow you in if you're a felon. Those are no longer his issue. But he does have a pending trial. So it's just as if he had been arrested, posted bail, and is awaiting his day in court. That's his current position.
But he may be waiting for a while, or he may not, because they could decide not to retry this at all. Is
Correct.
that also an option?
There's a finite period of time that when the Superior Court remands a case and sends it back to the Court of Common Pleas to be in accordance with its ruling, they have a certain amount of time in which to do that. So Mr. Krasner has to decide whether his office will proceed, which I sincerely doubt. I'll go on record as saying I sincerely doubt that they'll do that, just based on his stance on police corruption and officers who testify in a certain manner.
And the fact they've been dealing with this for more than 10 years. So
well, that too, but more so, since Krasner took office, he's been remember the list that came out? There was a list of officers who would not call this list. Well, this officer in Meek's case is on the list.
And he was the main prosecution's witness.
He is
so if you don't have him.
So let's go back years in this case for those who aren't familiar, and because a lot of people are seeing, okay, well, this wealthy rapper, he's been fighting it, raising his voice, but it actually goes back to a key witness in the case who testified, and it turned out that key witness, a former police officer, wasn't telling the truth, correct?
It turns out, not so much that he wasn't telling the truth in this particular case, but it turns out that he had been found to be less than truthful in other cases and put on a do not call
Which
list,
raised out
about all of his testimony in other cases, and his veracity as a police officer, as a witness. So they put him on a list to not call as a witness going forward in any other cases. So now that you have a case that is now back up for retrial, they're not going to call him again.
The judge in this case, real quick, Judge Janice Brinkley, she's out of the mix, correct?
Yes, she is.
And speaking of her, because I was going to ask so what happens to her now? I mean, this was something she took a hard stance on, and she would not change her mind despite all the things that were happening and the fact that people were protesting.
Sure.
What's next for her?
Life continues on. This was one case of hundreds that she is a supervising judge over, and it seemed to have gotten to the forefront. But quite frankly, life goes on. She'll continue doing her judgeship. She'll continue her tenure until re-election time and move forward.
Okay.
So the defense, you just wash your hands. If this doesn't get a new trial, do you just move on? I mean, he spent time in prison.
Yeah,
he had probation.
Correct.
Do you just move on from it, or do you seek?
Yes. I can assure you that there's probably some legal team somewhere already putting the pieces together behind the civil suit.
Wow. Okay, we want to read, though, the statement from the district attorney's office saying they're pleased that the Pennsylvania Superior Court has validated our position that Robert Meek Williams deserves a new trial before a court that has no appearance of partiality. The DAO, led by District Attorney Larry Krasner, is currently reviewing the opinion issued today and will begin to review options. And like you mentioned, they have about 120 days to do so.
Yes, they do.
Sergeant Johnson, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Thomas.
Thank you.
I'm going to take you straight away live to former Vice President Joe Biden speaking. He is at the National Urban League Conference. This is the National Urban League Conference in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the convention center there. Let's listen in to the presidential hopefuls' comments there to the National Urban League.
We desperately need people engaged. So when Jim, when it was time, Jim decided he wanted to start an Urban League chapter in Delaware, in Wilmington. Immediately sent over a guy who is with me today, who was the former president, but my staffer. He was a staffer then. It made me feel very badly today. When we talked, he said his son is 26 years old and just graduated from Syracuse. I said, oh, God, they can't be that old. Can't be the case. But anyway, Dr. Tony Allen. And together in '99, Tony and Jim founded the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League, with Tony serving as founding president. Now, Tony's here with me today as well, and my daughter Ashley, who ran the largest criminal justice organization in Delaware, she also served. She has her master's in social work. She served on the board of trustees for the Wilmington chapter, and my dear friend and now Congresswoman herself, Lisa Blunt Rochester, I'm really close with her family all these times, she served after that. The point is, Congressman Rochester was the first African-American, the first woman ever elected to Congress in the state, as well as the first African-American. And, I'm one of her biggest fans. Her dad and I go back a long way. So, this is all familiar commitment to me, but it's real. The Urban League is one of the most vital, and I'm not being solicitous, vital organizations we have. You're moving the needle. You're moving the needle on systematic racism and discrimination, and still that still is much of the contour of the world we live in today. And every time you publish a State of Black America report, you force us to contend with the entrenched inequalities that still exist in our society. And you're touching lives. You're changing them. More than 20,000 people are able to purchase a new home. More than 245,000 people are placed in jobs because of you. 3 million people have benefited from your educational services. And more than 8 million have benefited from health care services. So I want to start today by saying thank you. We owe you. We owe you. We owe you big as a country. And I mean that sincerely. Your unwavering dedication to advancing equality and opportunity for communities of color is incredibly consequential. Starting all the way back from 1910, you've been working on it. And so, look, I know you've changed a lot. A lot has moved since we spoke, and since I spoke here not here, but to you in 2016. But today, I believe we're in a battle for the soul of America. That's what's changed. We have a president of the United States who has deliberately Be nice, Joe. Be nice, Joe. Mom, I'm going to be okay, Mom. But I have a friend from Scranton who, bright guy, passed away not long ago. He used to say when something was really unusual, he said, "Who would have thunk it?" But seriously, this is direct appeal to racism that he's engaged in. When you saw those people, did any of you ever think, I mean this is sincerely, did you ever think those of us involved, and most of you have been, all of you have been, in civil rights issues for a long time, did you ever think you'd see, in 2017, people coming out of a field carrying torches, veins bulging, spewing anti-Semitic hate, accompanied by white supremacists as well as the Ku Klux Klan, and have a president, when a young woman gets killed in that city, saying, "We don't want hate in this city"? And the president's asked about it, and he said, "There's some very fine people in both sides." I, honest to God, never thought I would see that again. And as your great president, Whitney Young, who I got to meet a long time ago, once said, there's an unhealthy gap between what we preach in America and what we often practice. And it creates a moral dry rot that eats away at the very foundation of our democratic ideals and values. Well, that rot is really eating at us now in a big, big way. And there's an unhealthy gap that's haunted this nation for a long time. But today we have a president who embraces these supremacists. And last week he launched a vile racist attack against a sitting member of Congress, and actually 4 of them. He rips at families. He rips them apart at our borders. He puts children in cages. He's actively working to undo every bit of the progress President Obama and I and our administration did. And we have to defeat Donald Trump this time out. We have to. There's no other alternative, and then we have to work twice as hard to rip out the inequities that still exist for people of color, black people in this country, in housing, in health care, in criminal justice system, and so many other areas you're working so hard on. I've been in this fight for a long, long time, and as president, my North Star, and I mean this sincerely, I'm always referred to as middle-class Joe. That's not meant as a compliment in Washington. It means I'm not sophisticated. but I know who in the hell built this country. Wall Street did not build this country. Middle-class people and access to the middle class built it. And this time when we rebuild it, what you're doing, we have to bring everybody along, no matter their race, their gender, their zip code. In education, we're going to triple the funding for Title I schools from $15 to $45 billion in order to eliminate the funding disparities between majority black and minority white, rich, and poor schools. You know, schools serving low-income communities need to be able to give their students an equal start in life. And that means early education, 3, 4, and 5 years old. A lot of you are professors. You know the deal. We know the numbers. There's no debate anymore. If a child from poverty is exposed in 3, 4, and 5 years to real education, they have better than a 50% chance of making it through high school and going beyond high school. What are we doing? What in the hell are we doing with all these gigantic tax cuts, and we're not willing to do that? And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make universal pre-K in every single person, in every single one of these schools. We're going to make sure that every student has an economic opportunity to graduate from high school, an equal opportunity to graduate from high school, and either go to have some college credits when they graduate in their pocket, or industrial credits and skills so when they leave with a good paying job. And what bothers me the most, and I always got criticized this at home, I refuse to acknowledge that a child from poverty, from a single mom who can't read or didn't have an education, cannot learn as much as any child in America. If you give them a chance, I really mean it, and cannot go on. Cannot go on. The racial disparities are so pervasive in our society, they're part of our environment, literally. Poor communities, communities of color, tribal lands, they're the hardest hit by pollution. And I was talking with Tony Allen David when he worked with me back when I was a United States Senator when he got out of school. We were working on getting lead paint out of the community. And everybody said, what the hell are you doing? Lead paint, what's the big deal? Well, guess what? Look at all the communities where everything is, where there are wooden water pipes and spewing grit and dirt in the shadow of smokestacks. And anyway, it just goes on. That's why, for my climate change, it includes a comprehensive approach to environmental justice to ensure that our communities that can breathe clean air and drink clean water, from Flint, Michigan to Brady, Texas. But we're not doing it. My health care plan will get us to 97% coverage immediately, protecting and building on the Affordable Care Act, what I like to call the Obamacare. Not starting over with something new. Look, we'll include Medicare-like public option for anyone, in fact, who wants to buy in. And anyone who is on Medicaid, eligible for Medicaid, will automatically be enrolled in the public option, premium-free, so that we otherwise, you know, if they qualify for Medicare, including so many black and brown families in states where Republican governors have refused Medicaid expansion. And we also need to build a more inclusive economy from top to bottom, and with better access to capital and black-owned small businesses, and focus on reducing black unemployment. Folks, nearly 7% of unemployment, shouldn't be cheered. 7% unemployment of African Americans. Well, God, eliminating the wage gap at 16.8% penalty for working blacks. It still exists. That's the difference. We need to take on, and we can't just talk about decline in black home ownership. We have to do something about it. We have to make it that black neighborhoods are worth living in. You know how it works. When I first got involved as a senator, I was the first bill I introduced was redlining. Banks have to represent and lend to the communities they are in. That's what they have to do. Black home ownership and the fact that black neighborhoods are worth, the same house is worth half the value, same exact house, if it's in a white neighborhood, and predominantly white neighborhood. So there's an incredibly long list of policies I could go through, but my time is short. The last point I really want to make is about perhaps the most insidious threat to progress I think we still face, and that's voter suppression, and it's going on in America. Last year, 24 states introduced at least 70 bills to curtail the right to vote for people of color. Folks, I got involved in politics. I ran for the United States Senate to extend the Voting Rights Act. As chairman of the committee, I was the only one to get it extended 25 years. By the time I left, Teddy and I got it extended for 25 years, and we got a vote of 98-0 to support it. And then along came along came the change in the pre-clearance law. The Supreme Court ruled. It's just, look, 35 states now are scheduled to enforce voter ID laws. Nothing less than a methodological attempt to, deny people an assault on our democracy. And I can promise you, in this Biden administration, the Department of Justice will once again protect fundamental rights to vote, and I'll lead the fight to reaffirm the connections of the Voting Rights Act, to make sure it's easier for people to exercise their right to vote. And look, I've been making this argument for a long time. Voter registration should be automatic upon turning 18. And we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we have to keep pushing forward to close the gap between our values and our practice in this country. The size of the gap is gigantic, and we have to understand that the future rests in the American creed, the future where all men and women are created equal, but not only that, we say that in our Constitution, but treated equally. And I know we can do it. And I know we can do it because of all the challenges this country is capable of. We've never failed when we've decided to be together. And I want to tell you, Mark, this president has done for this generation what the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement did for my generation, the assassination of King and Kennedy. The fact of the matter is, the one thing I have to thank the president for, he's energized people to understand what we have to do, especially young people. And folks, I know my time is up, so I got to get out of here. But look, the bottom line here is that, we have to be in a position. We have to be in a position to believe that we can do something that we wouldn't have been able to do just 4 or 8 years ago. Because people now understand the paucity of everything this administration has done. They get it. They understand. They didn't even know what Obamacare was before. Now they know, and they insist they keep it. They didn't understand exactly what was going on until this guy went to such an extreme. So, folks, don't give up. There's an Irish poet who once wrote, history teaches us not to hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, that long-for tidal wave of justice rises up, and hope and history rhyme. We can make it rhyme if we're determined. Thank you.
Vice President Joe Biden speaking at the National Urban League Conference in Indianapolis.
Why don't we stand, Mr. Vice President? Vice President Biden, give him another round of applause. Just a few questions. You answered this, but just again, within your first 100 days as president, will you commit to introduce, pass, and sign a Voting Rights Act amendment bill that ends voter suppression and restores the pre-clearance provision?
Absolutely, positively. I can guarantee you I'll have it introduced. I guarantee you I'll sign it as passed. And I guarantee I'll work like hell to make sure it passes.
Second, will you commit to direct your cabinet officers as President of the United States to include the National Urban League and its affiliates as a major funded partner in your efforts around job training, youth development, housing, and entrepreneurship programs?
Absolutely, for a simple reason, not because I'm standing here with you. No, for a simple reason. You are the best buy the American people can have with their tax dollars. You make the money. You turn whatever we do, and like in our last administration, we provide billions of dollars. You are able to go out there and you multiply it. You take it to the communities and you bring in significantly more money in training. Your training facilities, they're real. You get people in the deal. That's why it's in America's interest. I have no problem with continuing to make that argument.
Good. Thank you very much. Our State of Black America report documented with precision the role that Russia, its internet research agency, and Vladimir Putin played in suppressing the African American vote through the use of trolls, the use of fake identities, through a widespread, expensive, diabolical campaign. What will you do, and what can we do to stop that in its tracks?
Look, folks, anybody who doubts the President of the United States standing at the G8 meeting and turning, and he was on his left, I know Putin, I spent a lot of time with him, turn to Putin, who is a flat dictator, and says, I believe President Putin over my intelligence community. And then at the G20, he turns and says, as if it's a funny joke. They're standing at their podium. He looks and he says, "You're not going to interfere," I'm paraphrasing, "you're not going to interfere again on our elections, are you?" As if it's a joke. It's an assault on our democracy. And it's going on right now. And I promise you, one of the things I was deeply involved with as vice president, the president gave me a lot of room and authority in terms of foreign policy and national security. I promise you, they will pay a price for continuing this proposition. And last thing I'll tell you, I started an organization with a former head of NATO, Rasmussen, in Europe. And we put together a commission where we had every single person in Europe running for office in any one of the NATO states take a pledge, a public pledge, that I'm the only one that I'm aware of has taken so far, that if in fact I find out anything at all that is going on in terms of trying to alter the election, whether it's helping me or not helping me, I will immediately go to the intelligence community and the FBI. This president said he'd accept that information. It is outrageous, it is un-American, and it's close to treasonous.
We say at the National Urban League, Vladimir Putin, hands off our democracy. Hands off our democracy.
He's trying to do it with every democracy, as you know that. That's what's happening in Europe. That's what's happening in France. That's what happened in Italy. That's what happened in Poland. That's why, and it's insidious. It is a serious, and the cyber attack capacity is real. It's real.
What can we do in advance of the 2020 election? I'm deeply concerned.
So am I.
That they're at it once again. That
they are. I promise you, they are.
Again, and that they're going to manipulate social media, try to interfere with our election system. What can we do to protect democracy in 2020?
Number one, you can make sure we get people to show up, number one. Number two, what we can do is we're in a position where we can get Facebook and other organizations to make, only beginning now, to make a pledge and hold them accountable for transmission of any of these messages and advertising and all the rest that's phony. Number three, you can ask every single candidate to commit that they will not take any contributions from anyone that's not totally transparent. That's how they get into the election process. It's dark money. They contribute through these super funds. Yeah, it's like a super fund. These organizations that put together money saying, well, they're outside, I have no control over them. That's where the dark money comes in. They don't have to reveal who contributed. We can't do much to change without being empowered the impact of what we instruct the intelligence community to do. We don't have the power to do that. That's why Nancy's working so hard to continue to expose this. Call it to everybody's attention. Make sure that we run on what we believe is the most important thing we should do, which is active, total participation with no engagement from any foreign power, including Russia, but maybe even China.
Thank you very much. The National Urban League generally gave the Obama administration, the Obama-Biden administration, high marks with regard to policy. But income inequality and wealth inequality actually grew during that time and continue to grow in the age of Trump. What concrete policies would you undertake to try to reduce and close the racial income and racial wealth gap?
It's a complicated answer, but I'll try to be very, very brief. Number one, some of you know that I was the guy at the family picnic who kept thinking we should be dealing with middle-class tax cuts and tax cuts for small businesses, et cetera. First thing I would do, and I promise you this, I will immediately I will immediately move to eliminate the Trump tax cut for the super wealthy, number one. Number two, no, I mean this sincerely. This has been my hobby horse for a long time. Number two, I would make sure we have $1,640 billion in tax loopholes that exist. Those of you who are economists, you cannot justify for me at least $600 to $700 billion of that is totally counterproductive and unnecessary. Case in point, just one. Right now, the president asked me to do a job before I left, what the jobs of the future would be. Anybody here think 12 years education is enough to make it to the middle class? You know it's not in the 21st century. So here's the 21st century. Here's the deal. The deal is that we can put every single solitary person in the United States of America qualified for community college in community college for free, cutting in half the cost of education for a 4-year degree, because every state allows it to transfer to the state university, for $6 billion. Well, there goes that big spending, but I'll eliminate one single loophole. It's called stepped-up basis. Out of $1,640 billion, it's only $17 billion. I can put every single solitary qualified person in community college, qualified, and people coming back because they've lost their jobs and they have to be retrained in community college, and still have $11 billion left over. Folks, we can, in fact, deal with these institutional concerns. We want to see to it that the small business initiative we had for minority families goes from $1.5 billion to $4 billion, because you know what it does. You guys are the ones doing it. It generates economic income, but most importantly, I think what it does, at least in my community, young black children look and say, whoa, holy mackerel. That's the person doing boom. I can do that. Half of it's exposing people to know what's available to them. And so, folks, there's a number of things. But first would be to do away with the tax cut, number one. Number two would go in and to vastly reduce, take about for example, you raise corporate taxes back up to 28%. It was 38%. That's $600 billion.
For infrastructure.
For infrastructure.
For
housing. And by the way, infrastructure, you know what's
schools.
You know what's happening in our schools, particularly in minority schools and Title I schools. You can't drink the water in many places. There's still, mold on the walls. There's still, we should be, I allocate $100 billion for reconstruction relating to schools and poor neighborhoods that allow them to be back in the position where they have something, if they own it, they can sell it. They can actually build wealth because of the fact that they can accumulate wealth in their homes. And anyway, I wish you had more time. I'm sorry.
Hey, Mr. Vice President.
I'm getting wrapped up here. I'm going to get wrapped up in cellophane if I don't.
It's going to continue. Ladies and gentlemen, Vice President Biden, thank you
for
being here with us this morning.
I promise I'll work hard for your support. And if I get elected, I'm with you. Thank you.
Former Vice President Joe Biden speaking at the National Urban League's annual conference. Apologize for that. That's in Indianapolis, Indiana, at the convention center there. Someone got a selfie there with the president, former vice president, the presidential hopeful, Joe Biden. Among the other candidates speaking at the Urban League today were Cory Booker, John Delaney, Amy Klobuchar, and Tim Ryan. Let's get you to a few more local news stories before we sign off here today on News Now. The first one is some surveillance video from the Philadelphia Police Department. They're looking for the public's help to find these two men after they were seen robbing a Universal Pharmacy on Kensington Avenue Tuesday night in Juniata. Police say they had a semi-automatic pistol and demanded money from the register. Last week, two men robbed a store in North Philadelphia. The pair, also dressed in black, held up the Turner grocery store. Investigators say one of them threatened a cashier with a similar semi-automatic pistol, while the other loaded up a backpack with cash. Police are not saying if they're the same guys, but they want them off the streets. In Bucks County, a Middletown Township police officer is facing child pornography charges. Investigators say they found numerous images of underage children on devices belonging to 52-year-old Brian Reeves. Officer Reeves is suspended without pay until the internal investigation is concluded. In Philadelphia, happening today, the city is hosting the Hire Hahnemann Career Fair. This will be a career and resource fair for Hahnemann employees who are losing their jobs with the hospital closure. It's happening from 1 to 6 p.m. at the Convention Center in Philadelphia, in Center City. Representatives from PA CareerLink Philadelphia will be there to help Hahnemann employees find other jobs. They'll also have information on unemployment compensation and student loan assistance. In Camden County, crews are finishing up work restoring power to the last 700 customers who are still in the dark. It's been all hands on deck for the last 3 days trying to restore power to the nearly 250,000 customers across southern Jersey affected by Monday's storms. PSENG said there can sometimes be small pockets where computers don't register outages, so you should always call if you lose power. A lot of the companies have made it pretty convenient now. They have, in addition to their website, you can use their apps to report outages. Of course, there's always making a phone call as well. A big reversal. A Pennsylvania school district will accept a donation offer to pay off thousands of dollars in debt after initially rejecting that offer. The Wyoming Valley West School Board will accept the offer from the CEO of Philadelphia-based La Colombe Coffee, Todd Carmichael. The donation will cover $22,000 in debt. The school made headlines when the district sent a letter home to parents threatening to take custody of their kids if they didn't pay lunch debts. They've issued an apology to the parents.
Emmanuel, what is...
Eagles fans, training camp is finally here. The Birds shared several videos yesterday of players arriving at the NovaCare complex. Training camp officially kicks off today at noon when the team will hold its first practice.
Time, baby. Let's get it.
We expect to hear from Coach Doug Peterson and quarterback Carson Wentz after practice. The team comes into the season with high expectations, so we want to know what you think. How many wins will the Eagles have this season? That was our vote this morning, our go vote. You may still be able to vote if you go to fox29.com/go vote. We typically show the results on air, but that'd be great, man. That'd be great. Log on to fox29.com/go vote to weigh in anytime we have one of our go vote polls actually on. In Lehigh County, people in Allentown are concerned after an innocent woman was shot by a stray bullet on her own porch. This happened on the 700 block of 9th Street Tuesday night. Allentown's police chief says the shooting could be gang-related, erupting after two groups met. Thankfully, the 51-year-old victim is expected to be okay, but a neighbor who doesn't want to be identified says she doesn't feel safe.
It was my neighbor that got shot twice in the back.
Did you see her?
Yeah, I don't know, she was on the chair screaming out in pain. And neighbors were all over. They came over to help her. They were putting paper towels on her back for the blood.
It's the 26th shooting since the 1st of June. There will be a peace march tomorrow night. And in Newcastle County, Delaware, one of two contractors shot while working on a gas main project in Wilmington has died. Police have identified him as 31-year-old Dupree Burrows. On Monday, two contractors with Delmarva Power were working on gas lines in homes and businesses near West 2nd Street when police say someone opened fire. It's not clear how the other victim is doing. So far, there are no arrests. A major recall to tell you about. Doctors say your breast implants may be giving you cancer. The company behind the worldwide recall and what the FDA says you need to do right now. Here is the report from Good Day Philadelphia this morning.
Certain textured breast implants have been recalled worldwide after a link to a rare form of lymphoma cancer in the lymph nodes is reported.
I want to bring in board-certified plastic surgeon Dr. Kristen Subio. Good to have you with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
This is alarming. You hear about this, and it has to do with the textured implants?
Correct.
Now, the saline or silicone? Doesn't matter.
It has more to do with the outer surface of certain kinds of implants.
And what would be the difference between getting a textured versus a non-textured implant?
Well, yeah, as you see, I'll show you right here. The textured implants convey a certain adhesion to the implant when you put it in. This particular implant is shaped like a teardrop, so it gives a more natural look as opposed to the classic round implant. So in that kind of implant, you want your body to adhere to it and keep it in position. It's important to mention that the vast majority of patients that have breast implants have the classic smooth round silicone implant. The textured implant represents a very small subset of a very rare disease.
Okay, and so we'll leave them though on the desk to make sure the camera can get it so people at home can see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to this and some of the reports that we're seeing, I mean, this kind of goes back to 2011 when people first started to notice there might be a link to cancer. So why now, in 2019, are they saying, okay, now we're really concerned, or we might be concerned?
More cases have come about, and that's why it's getting more press recently. But one thing that's very, very important with a story like this is to keep things in perspective. A lot of women, 10 million women worldwide, have breast implants. So it's important to give numbers like these some context. Of those 10 million women, only 500 cases worldwide have been reported, which represents about 1 in 20,000. So when you see a headline like breast implants cause cancer, you really have to give it perspective. It's rare.
So we jumped right into it. So let's rewind just a little bit. What are these breast implants causing? Because it's not breast cancer, it's a rare lymphoma.
Correct. And to differentiate breast cancer as we all know it, 1 in 8 women in their lifetime will be afflicted with breast cancer. This is a certain kind of lymphoma associated with this textured surface, in particular with one company's brand. So it's a very uncommon implant to place, and then it's one specific company's.
Do we know what it is about that company? What are they putting in that's different from the other companies that make textured ones?
It's a way that the textured surface is processed and created. Something about the body, the way one's body reacts to that textured surface, over time, some kind of immunologic response will cause this lymphoma.
If someone's watching this and they have breast implants and it is from that particular company, is there anything they can do? Because you can understand why someone might be concerned hearing this and like, oh my goodness, I have that specific one.
Correct. If they are one of those uncommon patients that has this particular brand of particularly textured implant, the FDA is not recommending that you get it removed, and that's important to stress. This is not a recall like some GM brake pad or such where you have to come back in and get it replaced.
But how do you know if you have symptoms? How are women being screened?
That's important. The most important thing is education. Plastic surgeon, if you have any questions, just reach out to your plastic surgeon, and they can tell you what to look out for. In particular, swelling on one side or firmness or any kind of change, any question whatsoever, just reach out to your plastic surgeon. All they're saying is to be aware of this, and this won't be offered in the future.
And is there a way to see ahead of? Because if it were me, I would think by the time I have symptoms, I think it might be too late or it's too far developed. Is there a way to see that you might get it ahead of time?
There's no way to predict that future potential, but it's important to realize as well that in those rare instances, it is overwhelmingly treatable. So while there's nothing that one can do preventative other than removing the implant, which is a possibility, it's more important that just one be aware of this very rare occurrence out there.
Okay. And, of course, we have to mention, because you are a plastic surgeon, do you think someone might say, oh, well, you do implants in general, so this might be a reason why you say it's rare, because this is something that you do?
That's a very valid question. It's a good question to ask. The truth is, the science shows us that this is exceedingly rare, and, if I were to place breast implants in a loved one, which I would do, it is absolutely safe, and that's the biggest endorsement that I could say.
But it's important to have this conversation with your doctor to ask.
Very important.
About some
Any
of the
plastic
health
surgeon
risks.
consultation for breast augmentation should talk about this and all of the risks so that the patient can make an informed decision.
Okay, well, a press release posted on Allergan's website reads in part, quote, patient safety is a priority for Allergan. Patients are advised to speak with their plastic surgeon about the risks and benefits of their implant type should they have any concerns. Importantly, the FDA and other health authorities have not recommended removal or replacement of textured breast implants or tissue expanders in asymptomatic patients, which is something that we've been discussing with you. So thank you, Dr. Subia.
Thank you for having me.
Taking a live look at this is an event where President Trump is expected to attend. I believe this is the swearing in for the Army, the new Army Chief of Staff. Let me get you the correct information. Yes, this is the Department of Defense hosting an Armed Forces full honors review with President Trump, VP Pence, and Secretary Esper. Secretary of Defense Esper, the newly appointed Senate-confirmed defense chief, defense secretary. I believe that is him with his back to us. A little hard to see, but just a quick live look there. Let's get you to one more story from Good Day Philadelphia this morning. It's not summer without watermelon. From watermelon bread and to watermelon steak, We're cooking with your favorite summertime fruit. Oh, and don't spit out the seeds. They're actually good for you. Here is that segment from Good Day This Morning.
I'm sorry, I'm just distracted by Beyonce.
Yeah, I was saying, I apologize. You just went on a Beyonce rant, and then I was like, oh, let's play Beyonce.
That's what they were saying in my ear.
Yep. So I hate to do that to you. But we're not just singing about watermelon, we're eating it. And for me, I love watermelon. In fact, it's a great thing. But usually I just put salt on it, Roberta Pepito, and then I just go on about my day.
Right.
But there's so many ways you can enjoy it.
Absolutely. It's not just the typical slice and eat. You get creative with it.
Like watermelon cupcakes?
Cupcakes, summertime. Why have cake in the summer where you can have a little bit of whipped cream on top with some sprinkles?
So
right?
really you took it and you just cut it in a circle?
Yep. You're using like just a cookie cutter. And this is great for kids, like for parties. Like I think this is such a safe way to go.
Does it count as a healthy cupcake? Because there's still sugar on there.
Well, almond milk, non-dairy,
Okay.
whipped cream, right? We'll make it a little bit healthy.
All right, now here's the adult kind of dessert.
The adult. Okay, so basically you're going to make like a marinade for the watermelons. These are popsicle margarita watermelons.
What?
So basically you're soaking them in a little bit of tequila, lime juice, agave, and then you're sprinkling a little bit of the salt with the lime on top.
Oh, is that what this is? I was like, what's the green?
Yeah.
And it comes together like
no,
that?
I actually do that for all my margaritas.
Oh, well, aren't you fancy?
I like to have a little bit of lime in there.
Okay, great. That looks
Let's
good.
get really interesting. Okay. This is
What is
not
this?
tuna.
It does
This
look like
is-
tuna.
This is seared watermelon. So
Seared.
yes.
So you literally put it on the
You put
grill.
it on the actually on the searing
Oh,
pan.
the searing pan, okay.
Yep.
Because that
You
would
can put it
make
on the grill
sense.
too.
Searing.
So you
It
put a
wasn't
little
grilled.
bit of feta.
I cook, can you tell?
A little bit of feta and some balsamic.
Yeah.
That's not bad. It's a different way. It's a healthy way for you to enjoy if you don't want steak.
Do you do cooking oil or what do you have? Or what
This
is
is
it? Oh,
balsamic.
Okay.
Yep. No oil.
Oh, okay.
Just put it right on a non-stick and it'll do its thing because it'll caramelize the sugars.
Okay, very nice.
Now this is not a gazpacho. It's a watermelon soup, which usually a lot of people think gazpacho.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
This is Greek yogurt with honey, a little bit of dollop of yogurt in there. And actually, it's really refreshing. You can enjoy this in the morning for breakfast.
That
I actually
is
would
good.
just drink it.
And it's minty because you have
Yep.
mint in there. So what did you just blended it or what?
You just blend it, and you use the pulp and the juice of the watermelon. You put some yogurt in there, and that's pretty much it. And a little bit of the mint, ginger.
I like it a
It's
lot.
actually a healthy way to enjoy something refreshing in the morning.
Now, my mother, because she's from Hope, Arkansas, and that's the birthplace of the Watermelon Festival. So when she got engaged to my dad, they had like a watermelon seed spitting contest. And so we always used to have fun spitting out the seeds. But you're saying we shouldn't spit them out, we should eat them?
No, they are actually really healthy for you. It's in its natural state, it's actually low in calories to enjoy.
Okay.
So, and it's actually healthy because it has a lot of vitamins, potassium.
But these are the smaller seeds, not the big
This
black
actually
ones, or-
develops. This is the immature. This is the baby
Oh.
seed. It turns into the black seed.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's not like a pumpkin seed where the seed is inside. This matures into that. That you can actually plant and it will grow.
Okay.
So the seedless watermelons are like the hybrid of the big watermelon.
Okay.
Which a lot of people buy. But these actually remind me of like sunflower seeds. You can put them on yogurt. You can put them on salads.
Yeah, they do taste like
really
sunflower
good.
seeds.
Yep.
Can you make them yourself?
You can.
Okay, is it
Now,
hard? Because you're like, wait.
Who's gonna sit there and take
That's true. That
all
would
the
take a
seeds
lot.
out? It'll take a while, but certainly you can certainly do that. You can use the black ones as well. You roast them for
Maybe a
about
little crunchier.
Yeah, 15 minutes at 325.
And where would you get this?
This
Whole
you can
Foods
get
or
Whole
something?
Foods.
Okay.
Online.
It's
You can
really
go direct-
good.
Yeah,
I like it a lot.
I like it too.
Hey, Thomas, maybe this will be the new popcorn, you know, the healthier version.
I have never tried watermelon seeds.
All right, I'll bring some in
Would
for
you?
you. He said he's never tried it.
And one of those watermelon steaks would be great too.
Okay, I'll just
Whatever
bring it all
else-
in. How about
whatever else
that?
you have
Have
on
a
the
full
table.
watermelon meal.
That's going to do it for us here at Fox 29 News Now. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Thanks for joining us. Of course, if any breaking news happens, we'll be back with you on Facebook and our website. If you haven't visited our revamped website, it's really quick and snappy, and we get you to the latest breaking news as soon as possible. We put some streams up there if there's something happening. Easy alert bar to get you into the video player when we do have breaking news happening. So thank you for joining us on Fox 29 News Now. We'll see you back here tomorrow.